Okay, hi. Today we're going to be talking about the JavaScript string class and string functions. Before we get started, just a little review again of function terminology for those of you that may not have seen some previous videos. A function is a pre-written piece of code designed to complete a task. I will from time to time refer to this as a method. I often use the words function and method interchangeably. We give that pre-written piece of code a name. That's the name of the function in which we want to use to call the code. The information going into the code here, the input is known as parameters. When we're writing code, parameters are written inside of the parentheses. If there's more than one parameter, we separate them by commas. And then the outputs is the information that's returned from the function. A function can only return one piece of information. It can take lots of parameters in, but can only return one piece of information. Okay, strings are commonly used in programming to get information from users. And often, as programmers, we want to then manipulate that information. So, this presentation will cover a few common string functions. For a more complete list, you can click the link. This takes you out to W3 Schools, where you can go out and learn more about strings. A couple things that are important written down here. All of the string functions must be called from a string variable, not the string class. And also, it's important to note that all string methods return an altered value and do not change the original string. So they're going to temporarily change some things to return it, but the original string will stay intact the way that it was when it started. Okay, let's get started. So case, there's two methods that allow us to alter the cases. We've got to uppercase, which returns a string in all uppercase, and to lowercase, which returns a string in all lowercase. So you'll see here, I've got a string stored in the variable str JavaScript, which is a mixture of uppercase and lowercase letters. If I do window.alert str.toUppercase, notice it's being called off the string variable, then this would output all uppercase JavaScript. If I then alerted the original string, it will output that string as it was because toUppercase does not alter the original string. And then similarly, if I write var lower equals str dot to lowercase, it stores JavaScript. Notice this version, all lowercase inside the variable. Next, we have to talk about the concept of indexing. All strings are indexed. This means that the position of each individual character can be identified by a number. The indices, as you'll see in this picture down here, start counting at 0 and go up to one less than the length. So the JS string class has a length of 19. And yes, we include spaces because a space is a character. So it's got a length of 19, but we count those spaces starting at 0. So the indices go from 0 all the way up to 18. If we talk about the index of this capital letter J, it's at 4. And if we say what character is at index 11, that's this lowercase n. Okay, the index of method takes a string as a parameter and locates that string in the calling string. It's going to return the first index of the first occurrence. If it's not found, it will return -1. So I've got a string here, hello world, is of length 12, counting from 0 to 11. So over here, I'm going to store that in a variable text. If I document that right, text.index of capital H, it comes in here and it finds the first occurrence of a capital H, which is right here at index 0. So this will output 0. If I window.alert text.index of O, and that's the lowercase o, it finds the first occurrence of O. Now there's two occurrences. There's one here and there's one here. This is the first one. So it's going to output 4, the first occurrence. Index of only ever outputs one number. Next one, var world equals text.index of world. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to find the first occurrence of the word world. Here it is. And I'm going to return the first position of that occurrence, the first index. So 6. Case does matter. Had I searched for lowercase w, I would have gotten a -1. because there is no WORLD in all lowercase inside of this. And finally, if I search for something, as I just said, that's not here, I get a -1. So if I search for a period, since there's not a period in here, none of these indices will be returned, and the result is -1. A little more information about indexing. There's another method called char_at. Char_at is the opposite of index of. It takes an integer and returns the character at that position. So if I do what's at 5 equals input.char_at_5, I come down to my string. This is cool. I find index 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's a lowercase I. So a lowercase I gets stored in the variable. If in the next one I output input.char_at_7, again, I go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's this space. So this would output a blank space. Also, we've got a length property. It's not a method, so we don't have parentheses. Notice char_at has parentheses after it. Length does not have parentheses. It returns the number of characters in a string. So input.length, remember, outputs 12. There are 12 characters in the string. They're indexed 0 to 11. Substrings is a big thing that we do in programming. Substring is a portion of a string. The substring function takes at least one parameter, start, and then it's got an optional second parameter, end. If we just call it with start, it will take a substring from that character to the end of the string. And if both parameters are present, it starts at the start and goes up to, but not including, the end. So here we've got whatchamacallit. It's a 15-character string indexed from 0 to 14. I'm going to store that in a variable called fave. So if I do fave.substring13, that means I'm going to come up here to the 13th index, and I'm going to substring from there to the end because I only wrote one thing, one parameter. So I get 13 to the end, so I get I and T, so it stores the word it in start 13. If I do start 0 and substring from 0, then it comes all the way back to the beginning at substring 0 and takes everything in the string. So I get the entire word whatchamacallit. If I output fave.substring 0, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember, when I put that second parameter, it goes up to, but not including that second parameter. So 0, 4 is actually just taking 0, 1, 2, and 3. It is not taking 4, which means it outputs what and does not include the C. All right, so in practice, we're going to ask a user for their full name, first and last separated by a space. We're going to use the string methods to alter that information and output the name in the format last comma first. So we prompt the user and we're very clear about it. Enter your first and last name separated by a space. That's the thing that I'm looking for. I find the point of separation of the names, which is the space. So I create a variable called space and I do name dot index of space. So now I know the number of that space. I get the first name. It starts at the beginning and stops at the space. So I do a substring from 0 to wherever that space is. Remember, it won't include the space. And that gives me my first name. The last name starts after the space and goes to the end. So I do a one parameter substring function. So last name equals substring space plus 1. So I found the location of the space. If I go to the first index after that, that should be the first letter of the last name. And the one parameter substring goes all the way to the end. So that should get me my whole last name. So now I have the first name stored in first and the last name stored in last. And then I output my information just with document.write, and I do last and then concatenate on a comma and then concatenate on the first name. And that's how we get it in normal format and then output it in last comma first format. Okay. So here's a practice problem for you to do. Take an email address from a user, locate the position of the @ character, and then find and alert all of the characters prior to the @ sign. For example, if the input is mangle@colonialsd.org, the output should be mangle. You'll find the video solution to this online, along with, if we click here and go to cs.mickeyengel.com, you'll get more information about the string classes. And if we click on more practice, of course, you'll be taken to the practice problems that I highly recommend you do. Strings are really important, and manipulating strings is really important inside of programming, but it only comes with practice. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.